Hola, 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 chicos. This is your video on boot verbs. They change from E to IE, and it is 4.1, so Unidad 4, Lección 1. When you are watching this video, be sure to pause it when I'm talking too fast. When you need a second to reread what's on the screen, you need some time to write something down, or rewind it if you need to go back over some information. Remember, you can always ask questions in class. So you might be saying you have no idea what is going on, and that's okay. Boot verbs are verbs that have a stem change in the present tense. And you might say, well, that doesn't make any sense either. So think about the verb comer, or the verb vivir, comer to eat, vivir to live, or escuchar, to listen. That would be a boot verb if you drop the ER and then there's a spelling change in the com part, or a spelling change in the viv part, or a spelling change in the escuch part. So you had to change something here before you added the o asa amos aisan, or here before you added that ending. The stem is the part of the verb left after you take off the AR, ER, or the IR. This is the first thing you have to write down. Stem changing verbs have regular AR, ER, and IR present tense endings. Anything that's in caps, you're going to have to be writing down, please. Why are they called boot verbs? For E to IE stem changing verbs, next thing you got to write down, the E of the stem changes to an IE in all forms except nosotros and vosotros. So these are the next four things you have to write down. The E of the stem changes to an IE in all forms except nosotros and vosotros. That's why we call them boot verbs. I bet it's as clear as mud. Let's take a look. That means that in the yo form, something is going to change from E to IE. In the to form, something's going to change from E to IE. In él, ella, and usted, something changes from E to IE. And in ellos, ellas, and ustedes, something changes from E to IE. So there's a spelling change there. In nosotros and vosotros, there is no spelling change. If you look at the verb chart like that, it kinda, sorta, a little bit, looks like a boot. That's why we call them boot verbs. So what you have to remember is that there's a spelling change with these verbs from E to IE in every form except nosotros and vosotros. Here's the ones that are in this unit. These are the E to IE stem changing verbs. Notice that the E that's going to change to IE is bolded. Cerrar, to close. Make sure you write these down because you don't have these meanings on your packet. Entender is to understand. Pensar is to think. Empezar is to begin. And preferir is to prefer. There's actually 6 of them. These are the first 5. The 6th one is this one, querer, which means to want or to love. You have a big line where you can write down what that one means. Now here's what's happening. This E right here just changed to an IE. Quiero. What I want you to do is make sure you write down all the conjugations. Yo quiero, tú quieres, él, ella, usted quiere, Q-U-I-E-R-E. Then there's no spelling change. Nosotros queremos. Vosotros queréis. Ellos, ellas, ustedes quieren. Q-U-I-E-R-E-N. Back inside the boot. Remember that our boot is all forms except nosotros and vosotros. A sample sentence. It was a commercial many, many years ago. There was a little chihuahua that used to say, Yo quiero Taco Bell, which means I want Taco Bell. Remember, if I'm going too fast, feel free to pause the video. That's why it's here. Entender is to understand. This is the E that's going to change to IE. Entiendo, entiendes, entiende. Outside the boot, entendemos, entendéis, entienden. Nosotros entendemos el español. We understand Spanish. Notice also that when you have the spelling change from E to IE, it does change how the verb sounds a little bit. Cerrar, to close. Cierro. Cierras. Cierra, not the singer, but it means he or she closes. Nosotros cerramos. Vosotros cerráis. Don't forget your accent. You got accents on all your vosotros forms. Ellos, ellas, ustedes cierran. La señora Jokeris cierra la puerta. She closes the door. Empezar is to begin. Empiezo, empiezas, empieza, empezamos, empezáis, empiezan. La escuela empieza a las 8:25. School starts at 8:25. Pensar, to think. Pienso, piensas, piensa. Pensamos, pensáis, piensan. Tú piensas mucho en la clase de ciencias. Here's our last one, preferir. Notice that this is the E that's going to change. It's the E right before the ending, and it's going to change to IE. Prefiero, prefieres, prefiere, preferimos, no change, it's nosotros. Vosotros preferís, ellos, ellas, ustedes prefieren. Las chicas prefieren los jeans. One more note sheet. If there are two verbs next to each other, when one verb directly follows another, the first verb is conjugated and the second stays in the infinitive form. So make sure you get that down. When one verb directly follows, so there's two verbs right next to each other, the first verb is conjugated and the second stays in the infinitive. So here's what that means. Yo is our subject. Quiero usar. Those are both verbs. I want, what do I want? I want to use the computer. So this is our conjugated verb. This is our infinitive. Ellos empiezan a hacer la tarea. They start. What do they start? They start to do the homework. So we've got our subject ellos, and then we've got two verbs. That's what that means. Vamos a practicar en la clase. Remember, if you have questions, bring them to class. Show me at what point you got confused, and we can clarify in class. Adios.